Hi, I'm Stina Skies-Cox with the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. I'm here today to discuss Proposition F on the June ballot. Proposition F would add to the city's residential rent ordinance a provision for tenants to file hardship applications to postpone any allowable rent increase if one of the following apply. First, if the tenant has become unemployed. Second, if the tenant's wages have been reduced by at least 20% in the last 12 months. And third, the tenant's sole income consists of government benefits with no cost of living increase in the last 12 months. Once the tenant submits a financial hardship application, the rent increase is postponed for 60 days or until a hearing is held, whichever date is later. If the tenant is found to have a financial hardship, the landlord may not increase the tenant's rate until the circumstances have changed, as determined by a review. A yes vote means you want to add this provision to the city's residential rent ordinance. A no vote means you do not want to make this change. And that's Proposition F. I'm here with Mr. Ted Gullickson of the San Francisco Tenants Union to discuss Proposition F, which is on this June 8th ballot. Mr. Gullickson, why should the voters of San Francisco vote yes on Proposition F?
Well, San Francisco's unemployment rate is almost at 11%, and most of the people who are unemployed are tenants. And San Francisco has very high rents, and tenants who are unemployed are having a really difficult time affording existing rents. Prop F will let tenants get rent increases temporarily postponed, new rent increases temporarily postponed, if they're unemployed or have had their wages cut by 20% or more. Under Prop F, a tenant who has lost their job and gets a rent increase notice will be able to go to the rent board and file a petition to get that rent increase delayed until they are back on their feet financially.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what that means specifically for the tenant under this, should this measure pass?
I think for tenants it means that many tenants will save their homes. As I said, if you are unemployed, you're going to have a really difficult time paying San Francisco's very high rents, and any sort of rent increase that you got would likely lead to you losing your home and having to move out of the city, or worst case scenario, actually ending up on the streets. And so Prop F will simply let those tenants get that rent increase delayed until they're back on their feet financially. We think it's something that is what any decent landlord would do, and that's give a break to a tenant who's down on their luck and postpone any rent increase until that tenant is in a better position to pay it.
I'm now here with Ms. Janan New, Director of the San Francisco Apartment Association and an opponent of Proposition F. Janan, tell us, why should the voters vote no on Proposition F on June 8th?
The voters should vote no on Proposition F on June 8th because the measure is illegal. In a letter that Delene Wolfe, the executive director of the Rent Board, sent to Mayor Newsom, and Mayor Newsom again sent a letter to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, he asked them to remove this item from the ballot because he believed it was unconstitutional. The voters, in voting against this, will save the city a lot of money in defense of the measure. If the measure passes, the San Francisco Apartment Association, along with its partners, will sue the city on the basis of constitutionality. The city attorney will have to defend this unconstitutional measure, and they will ultimately lose in court, but only after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if the voters in San Francisco are concerned about the city's monumental high budget deficit, they will vote no against this measure and save the city a lot of tax money.
So what does this measure specifically mean for the landlords?
For landlords, there's already a Section 8 program set up to help low-income tenants or tenants suffering from hardship. So if a tenant truly does need assistance, there's a federal program set up and they can get a voucher to help supplement their rental income. This is more about a leftist group taking control of a city department and mandating hardship for even people that don't need it. People such as tenants that maybe make $200,000 and their income drops by 20%, they would no longer have to pay any rent increases. For landlords, this is going to mean a more difficult time screening tenants a more difficult time in applying fairness to all applications that come in.
Well, that sums up Proposition F today. Once again, I encourage you to visit sfvotes.org for more information on the June 8th election. Thanks.